Good morning. I'm a little bit late for this live. I've got lost in the woods and then a high wind came up, so I thought I'd race home and do it in a more controlled atmosphere. Now, I said today that I wanted to talk about when people say they don't like us and they don't want to be with us anymore, or they don't want to speak to us anymore, they want to cut off the friendship or relationship. And it's really tough and it's not easy to know what to do. And from my experience, I know this has been a totally new experience for me. This happening with when we have children and our children are best friends, and we're friends with parents maybe who we don't always, it's not exactly a full choice to be friends in that way. So that's how it's been in my experience. And then this has come out of a few conversations with different people saying this has happened to me. For no reason I could see, someone cut me off. And I've had to continue seeing them every day, whether it's in the playground, in the workplace. So I thought, why not explore this today? I'm just going to move this down a little bit. And for me, it's really important to get into a space of exploration. When I do lives, when I do podcasts, whatever I'm doing, I need to get into a space of exploration. And what is a space of exploration? Well, it's a space where you're willing to look at everything, letting go of being right and having to know the answer. And I really don't know the answer to this. This is an exploration. And to be vulnerable, and being vulnerable is not necessarily sharing deeply of yourself. It's not knowing. It's willing to look at something without knowing what you're going to find. And in the spirit of full disclosure, it's funny, I've done this. I've cut people off. I've cut people off many times in my life. I avoided conflict, and rather than have an open conversation with somebody, if they had a difference of opinion or were telling me I was wrong, I couldn't deal with it and I would walk away from them. And it's also happened to me that somebody's done this to me. And I think it's a normal part of life that we're not necessarily taught how to be in this situation. And it's funny because the person who liked my post first to say I was doing a live about this, hey Tony, the first person who liked my post to say I was doing a live about people who cut you off, it was the person that I have cut off twice in my life. And we love each other dearly. It's like we're like sisters, Danielle Marnes. But we haven't always seen eye to eye. So what is this thing about where somebody cuts us off? What are we supposed to do? Like, are we supposed to try and understand each other? And I think this is where I've come unstuck. In this reality, in psychology, we're supposed to try and understand each other's viewpoints. And I'm going to come at this from a different angle, and to say that when this happened to me recently, I did deal with it differently based on my friend who this has happened before with us twice, based on a new friend I've made in Montenegro where we had a difference of opinion, and it did change the relationship, but we were present with it as much as we could be. And I behaved differently again in this other situation where I came from the angle, come on, let's talk about this. I want to talk about this. Let's really look at this. And you think if you do that, that's going to change things. And it may. And I think it's a great thing to do, is to have that conversation about, look, can we talk about this? Can we look at what's going on? That takes a lot of vulnerability, because really when somebody cuts us off and says they can't deal with us or that we're wrong, immediately it's like all of this stuff gets sparked within us. Childhood abandonment, any things that are lurking, any programs we have running are sparked. So the more present we can be with that, and I don't mean go into it by present, I mean present with, wow, this is actually, I am experiencing something from this. This is not just the present. And then what I would say is, I have written things down today because I can tend to ramble, and it's important to me is this. So now I want to come from a little bit of a higher perspective. And by higher, I genuinely mean that. I mean that we go up and look down on what's happening. So if we come away from that perspective that we need to, for this to be resolved, one, it needs resolving. Two, we have to understand each other's viewpoints, which can sometimes help, but doesn't always, and can still be, we need to find out who's right and who's wrong. So going to a higher perspective, we're going to let go of all that right and wrong. And we're going to look down on relationships as a whole. Now, my aim in life that I've realised, and I've done it very badly at times, is to live my life without attachments. This doesn't mean not caring for people. It means not expecting them to behave in any way that you've set out. And when they do behave in an unexpected way, it's not cutting off from them, not cutting off your caring. Although you may feel that you have to cut off your physical presence from them, you don't kind of create an energy block by cutting them off in your life. And so from a higher perspective, what if relationships need to end sometimes? So I talked about when I shared about doing this live that when we get really present with our lives, and I know that's happening for lots of people, and it may be that you're getting less present with your life as well, I don't know. But when we get really present with our lives, we can tend to feel like, well, I'm just being me, I'm not changing, but people around us are falling away or cutting off from us. And it doesn't make us better than anybody else, but it does create a change in relationships, and it does create this specific thing where people seem to be falling out with us for no reason that we can perceive. And it's a very specific thing, and I'm seeing a lot of it at the moment. So looking from a higher perspective, ask yourself this question. What does it actually create in the future if this relationship ends? And you may not know the answer, but at least you can be curious about that, about, well, actually maybe this is what's required. And there's a quote from a film that I really love, which is A Boy Called Sailboat, and this little boy says, sometimes things have to happen so other things can happen. So can we at least get into that space where we're being curious? Okay, maybe this is actually what's required in my life right now, and maybe it's what's required for the other person. It may not be the best thing for you two to be friends right now. But here's the other thing, when you see somebody every single day and they've decided to cut you off, how do you deal with it? Now, I always come at everything from an empathic point of view, which means I always question whether what I'm feeling is what I'm feeling, or am I aware of something that someone else is feeling. Now, in this particular instance, when it happened to me, I would be aware of an intensity when I would be around this person, and I would stand there and the person turned their back on me or wouldn't look at me, was blocking me. And what I had to do at that moment was to actually experience what was coming up just as energy. Now, I see a lot of things about our shadow selves and going into feelings, and if that's working for you, great. For me, the issue that I have with it is that I'm going into other people's shadows as well. So what I would always recommend is, as best as you can, get into this space of curiosity, a space of vulnerability, of exploration, when you're around people, and notice these things come up and, okay, this feels like hurt. And where do you notice it in your body? And I can access it now because I remember it. And it's like, it's here, okay? And you just let it be there. And just notice it. Don't fight it. Don't resist it. Please notice you're not dying. And when we do this straight away, we're getting out of reacting. Because this is the thing, isn't it? if we feel this and go, oh, this is unpleasant, what we can do is start to lash out at other people or make that person who's cutting us off bad, try and find ways that they're bad so we don't have to be bad. It's like, what if we don't have to do any of that? What if we can experience everything that comes up as, and it actually is changing the molecules in your body, and let it happen. And when we do this, and I can feel it happening now, it's like we expand out, our energy expands out, and we change, we grow. Okay, so that's something that you can do. But also have allowance for their choices. We don't know why people do things. And I think if we can let go of trying to figure out why people have done things and allow them to make their choices, even if it's about us, we don't have to prove that we're right or that we're wrong. We're kind of admitting there's something real there if we do that anyway. Really, what people do has very little to do with us. Much of what they experience is a projection. They're projecting, and I include myself in this, and I try and do it as little as possible by being present and aware and working on that all the time and investing in that all the time. But sometimes it's inevitable. We project onto people and other people project their stuff onto us. And that's okay. So when you see this person every day, just see if you can continue to be you. Don't make yourself smaller. Don't go to justifying yourself. And by that, we don't say it out loud, but we go to the energetic space of I need to justify myself, I need to justify myself. What if you can expand out in their presence and be vulnerable, actually, like this? And be with them, even if it's good morning. They may cut you dead, but can you continue to be morning? Without manipulating the situation? Okay. And I just want to share something I experienced one time, just to finish this up, which was that there was a time in my life when I felt like I had to be alone. I had to find out who I was, and I thought by being alone I could do it. And I went to Holyhead for a weekend. I mean, what a place to find yourself. Sorry if you're from Holyhead. So I went to Holyhead for the weekend, and I couldn't interact or do anything. And I sat on a hillside above the ferry, and I watched the lorries going on the ferry. I watched the cars, the passengers going on the ferry, and I watched for quite a while. And I was in quite a bad place in my life then. And I watched for quite a while, and what I became aware of was that the people, the cars, the lorries, they were like blood cells moving around the body. I had the strangest sense as I watched. And I do believe that we as people are like those blood cells moving around the body of the earth. And we really sometimes don't know why we do things. We don't know why other people do things, but sometimes it just has to happen. So can you embrace being present and in the moment now and receive whatever shows up? Receive somebody's judgment, receive somebody's choice about you, and please practice experiencing feelings as energy rather than trying to figure them out, and see what creates the most for you. I don't want to tell you what to do, just explore. And that's what I love doing. Thanks for listening.